So we're going to talk about another remote viewing the news target, and we'll just get right into it. In this session, you'll see from the session post, it was uploaded a little after 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I checked the session around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is 1400 hours Pacific Standard Time. I was targeting 1700 hours Eastern Standard Time, so everything lines up. I initially thought that I was looking at a hand that was holding these like loose strips. It was strange, like these loose wiry strips that were dangling down. I don't know if I had made target contact yet. There is these wires being held up. It's not a hand holding them up. There's some sort of a pole that's been damaged here, and the wires are hanging down from it. I don't know if that's the case or not. But the next scan was on target. Second scan, I saw what I described as foot traffic. Foot traffic in a busy area. It felt dusty. It felt like it was an open area. I described it like an open market feeling. A narrow path with people walking in the middle of this path, and there were buildings on each side of them. I drew buildings on the right and left. And then I drew this shape up above them that was hanging up in the air. Some light shape hanging up in the air. And I called it cloth. Now, you're not supposed to do that. I should have just described it as a light color or a light material. Some sort of lightness hanging in the air above this whole scene. And because I thought it was market, I thought that was cloth that was hanging up above. That's what Analytical Overlay does. It colors your session so that you retain the sensory impressions from your target, but you represent them as a piece of analytical information. And that's almost always incorrect. By naming something, you almost ensure that you're going to be incorrect. And I know better, and sometimes I can't help it. There is this pull from the ego, and the ego just wants to be like, no, I know what that is. You are not going to guess correctly. Almost never are you going to guess correctly. So, good luck with that. I'm still trying to figure that out. But there was some sort of a lightness hanging in the air above them, something light. And then I had this very strange impression of this girl who was front and center staring at me on the left side. I have no idea what that is. She's not in the image. I don't know why she was there. I'm not going to start thinking about all that because it'll drive you nuts. It's probably just imagination. Or she was generated by that smaller character who's in the background there. I don't know. Either way, the target image was these soldiers who were walking down this path. In the middle of this bombed out area, they had buildings on each side, and what was hanging up above them was not cloth, it was smoke. So those details in my session, they do bear an uncanny similarity to the details in the target image. Especially the impressions of foot traffic on a narrow path with buildings on each side, something lightness hanging up above them. So, interesting. I also, one last point is that I thought I was seeing peaks at the top of these buildings. And there were, in the image, you can see the buildings have these peaks and antennas and stuff sticking up out of the top of them. So that also correlates with the target image. That word is a little ambiguous. I don't love that word. you'll see it indicate buildings sometimes, and you'll see it indicate mountains sometimes, but usually what it means is off in the distance there is something that is elevated that comes to a point. So I remember being pretty spooked by that girl who was in front, because the area is recently bombed out and she looked like a little girl wearing this light colored dress. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, the question of did you see a ghost pops up in your head. I don't think that's the case. I think what happens is your subconscious tries to paint you a picture. There are times in sessions where it seems like the subconscious is kind of dramatizing things, which is why it's important that you can have real feedback. If you don't have real feedback, like an actual picture or an actual real world target, then it's very, very easy to start convincing yourself that you saw something insane. This is why people remote viewing UFOs is a problem for me. If you're going to do that, which I have done space-based targets before, I've done moon targets before, I've had incredibly strange experiences when it comes to supernatural targets, paranormal targets, but I don't know if I was seeing real-world information, okay? I know for a fact that the subconscious will give you a good hit on a fictional target. I had the target Shrek one time. I've talked about this before, I'll talk about it again. The target was Shrek. I drew a giant green monster and the ears stuck out, just like Shrek. And I got my feedback and I'm like, all right, that's really funny. And then I started thinking, this character doesn't exist outside of the fictional world. And yet I had the same sort of sensory interaction that I had with all these other targets that are real world targets. So if you do mess around and end up randomly targeting an alien or a ghost or a UFO, just be aware, if you're not in a position to actually gather real world information on that feedback when you see it, if all you are targeting is a question like, what does a UFO look like? Your subconscious will paint a convincing picture of a UFO. And that does not mean that you're actually seeing one. It just means that you have packaged sensory information related to your reaction to your feedback when you see it. And that sensory information is available at the time of your session. So, measure your emotional response when it comes to targeting strange and paranormal targets. Because without real-world data, you do not know if you're actually gathering good information or if you're just seeing your subconscious's best guess at this exotic target that you have chosen at random, blindly, to target. So, that's it. This is a cool session. It was a hit. I hope you are enjoying these. I hope you're getting something out of them. And keep practicing. Remember, you can do this. All of you can do this.